Back so soon? Oh no, what happened?
A little incident at the dog park. We gotta head to the vet.
Oh, not again. These bills.
We can use CashNet USA. We can apply in minutes, get a fast decision, and have the money in the account as soon as the same business day. All right, Cheddar, back in the car.
When you need money fast, be the hero. All loans subject to lender approval. Speed of funding is subject to verifications and your bank's processing times. See CashNetUSA.com for more details.
He was a police officer. He was forced to retire due to line-of-duty injuries. He was shot multiple times, left blind, and has life-changing permanent injuries. And he's coming up to tell you a story on the Law Enforcement Today show. Welcome to the Law Enforcement Today radio show. I'm your host. My name's John J. Wiley. In addition to being a radio broadcaster, I'm a retired police sergeant. For the latest news articles and much more, check out our website, letradioshow.com. In the Law Enforcement Today show, we'll be joined by special guests. We'll be talking about their experiences and issues affecting law enforcement officers, first responders, their families, their community, and victims of horrendous crimes. Be sure to like us on Facebook. Our page is Law Enforcement Today Radio Show. Check out the daily articles on our website, letradioshow.com. And while you're there, download our free app. Who can first responders turn to when they need help? Shatterproof at FHE, providing world-class exclusive treatment services for first responders suffering from exposure to trauma, PTSD, anxiety, depression, and or substance abuse. For free 24/7 information, call 833-776-1420. 833-776-1420. That's 833-776-1420. Online at FHEHealth.com. That's FHEHealth.com. Under programs, you'll find details about Shatterproof. Calling us from the Massachusetts area, Robert Bob DeNapoli, retired police officer. Bob, thanks for joining us on Law Enforcement Today show.
Thank you for inviting me, Jay.
You retired, line of duty injury. We're going to talk about the details, the incident, the violent attack, the gunshot wounds, all that in a little bit. Please, people want to tell you, you don't want to miss that conversation. But Robert, since retiring, is involved in a group called VIPO 911, or Violently Injured Police Officers Organization. Tell us about that, where people get details, what it is you all do.
So let's say a police officer gets injured on the duty, violently injured. You know, we reach out to them. We do our best to reach out to them. A lot of times, police officers don't even want to talk to anybody after an incident like this.
Right.
So we give them a little time. You know, we know once he gets home or once he's like rehabbing and stuff, that he needs to talk to somebody. So we, with our experience of what we've gone through and other police officers that we've spoken to, we kind of go in there and we just tell them, you know, we give them our cards and we say, look, this is what we're here for. We're here to just, because we know what's going to happen later. Not everybody reacts the same, and we know that, but what we do know is people disappear. Things happen. You're going to retire. We know what you have to go through for the retirement process. We also know the abandonment that you're going to feel. We also know that, you know, people go back to work and they don't come to your house every single day, like the revolving door when you first get home or when you're first injured, or the media and all that big hoopla that you have at the beginning of what's going on, to the months and months later when you're going through the rehab and you're still home while everyone else is back to work. And so what we are there for is to try to help you through whatever you need to get through. And when that process is happening, which we have done, we have helped a lot of guys. Even wives have called us and said, I'm concerned for my husband, or I'm concerned for my wife. She seems to be struggling. Can you give him a call? Don't tell them I called, but please give him a call and check on him. And we'll check on him, and we'll talk. We'll go to coffee with them. We'll bring him to our house and have dinner, whatever it is, whatever these guys need, to be reassured that it's a normal process. That's a process that you have to go through. We went through it. Mario and I went through it for a year and a half of healing and trying to get ourselves back on our feet. Concerned about finances. That's another thing we try to help you guys with is to tell them, you know, all right, you're going to go on workman's comp, or you're going to go on some type of a situation where you're going to get some money. Relax. You know what I mean? It's a process. Everything's a process. This is a marathon, not a sprint. None of us were planning on going out. I was 50. I wasn't planning on retiring at 50.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I was 33.
Bills.
My career was over with. It's like, bye-bye, you can't be a police anymore.
Right, exactly. You know, I mean, those tuitions my kids had, my mortgage, my car, whatever I had, that was all, 15 years down the road in my mind. You know what I mean? That was all going to be paid for. My mortgage was set up, so at 65, I'm done. Well, guess what? I'm 60 and I'm done.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just, it was such a tough process. So this is what we try to, we give them the realization. It's realistic. This is what happens. You're going to stress. The walls are going to close in. Then you're going to retire, and there's your whole loss of identity. There's everything that you've gone through the police academies, you've worked with people, whatever it is, whatever your process was for policing, is gone. And I mean, let's face it, as a police officer, you are different. You have an identity, you have a career, you have something a little different than everybody else out there, that works, as, just different workers.
We hear all the time people say it's the thin blue line or it's a blue family, and it really is. But what happens, like in my case, when the doctors say you can't go back to work, life goes on. They've got their families, they got their jobs, they got everything else they do, and all of a sudden I'm feeling like no one knows who I am anymore.
Right, exactly.
I was part of this unit, and a big part of my coping skills of going through all that we went through was being with the guys. I say guys, the men and women I worked with every day. It was a big part of how I made it through. And then when that was no longer available, now it's just you, yourself, and I, and your thinking.
Yep. Right. And that's dangerous sometimes, you know what I mean? Because, like you said, you're with these people. You don't just, see, when you're a police officer, you don't just work with these people. You party with them.
Yep.
You go to everything with them, because you guys are, like you said, that thin blue line kind of like flows into your personal life big time. And you don't think it at first. You just think of your friends, but no, it's a little more than that. It really is. There's a hood there, a brotherhood or sisterhood there, that it belongs. And when you lose that, like you said, now you're home. Your wife's trying to help you heal. She, luckily for me,
she didn't sign up for that.
I said.
Yeah, and they didn't. They're not doctors. They're not therapists. They don't know. All of a sudden, you went to work fine one day, and then you're not. And then it's really bad stuff happened, and now I got to deal with the aftermath, and I got to be the caretaker, right. And it's not an easy role for anybody.
No, the poor, she had to work, and so how she's doing that? I'm on crutches. I can barely walk, because of my injuries. The nurses would come, because I had nurses come to my house instead of me going to rehab, because I was like, I get it. Here was the thing, Jay. When I was in the hospital, they said to me, if you can get on your crutches, you can go home. And all I kept thinking in my head is I want to go home. Because what is the thing, when we walk out of roll call, your whole goal is to go home that night. And I didn't. You know what I mean? I didn't go home that night. So my whole goal, and I kept saying it to my wife, I was like, I just want to go home. And she's like, Bob, you can't. I'm like, I'm going home. So when the doctors released me, I was supposed to go to rehab, and I said, I'm going home. I'm not going to a rehab. So what did I do to my wife? What did I do to her? She actually had to, my sons, luckily they're older, had to empty my dining room, get all the dining room furniture out, and get a hospital bed in there. And they had to set it up like a hospital ward. You know what I mean? Because of my stubbornness, number one, and because I was like, I have to go home. That was only my only thought.
I think stubbornness is a trait that many of us have.
Yep. Well, yeah.
Perseverance, persistence, whatever it is. Something that was drilled into me from day one in the police academy, and I say this almost every episode of this show, and people listening need to understand this, whether in law enforcement or not, that no matter how bad the situation you're in, no matter how violent, no matter how much, if you're in a fight with an MMA fighter and he's actually cleaning your clock, you cannot give up. You got to stay in the fight. You can't. Help is right around the corner.
Absolutely, and that's, when you hear a little later, that's what I did. You know what I mean? I just had to keep going. Even if I didn't do anything, my thought process was to still keep going. No way, this isn't going to happen this way. You know what I mean?
I'm not leaving this planet this way.
Yeah.
I do recall the night I got hurt, and when it was hurt, it didn't seem like a big deal, seemed a sprained wrist, but it wound up being multiple surgeries and being retired at the age of 33 by the typical unarmed man who tried to shoot me with my service revolver. It was still in my hand, and the fight over the gun wound up destroying my wrist. But I remember vividly thinking to myself, and it wasn't like a deep conscious thought because there's not enough time for that. It was, this man is trying to kill me. And I remember thinking, I'm going to die, but it's not going to be tonight, and it's sure not going to be because of you. And I'm going to do whatever I have to do to survive this. This is the Law Enforcement Today Show. We're going to take a short break. We're talking with Bob DeNapoli. We'll be right back.
What makes Shatterproof a very unique program is it's one of the only programs in the country that first responders can go to that is 100% all first responders. Everybody's in pretty bad shape when they get here. And then 30 days later, when you can see the transformation and the difference in people when they've had 30 days of counseling, working with therapists, working with a psychiatrist, getting the neuro treatment. The transformation that happens with the clients is really humbling to be able to work around and see, because people are getting better here. And it just shows that there's a need for the first responder community to deal with behavioral health issues and take them seriously and offer treatment to people that may need help out there.
For free 24/7 information, call 833-776-1420 or online at fhealth.com. This portion of the Law Enforcement Today radio show is brought to you in part by Pet Rescue Life Facebook page. Everyone's welcome at the Pet Rescue Life Facebook page, where you'll find fun, informative, and enjoyable posts daily. Purebred, mixed breeds, rescues, we love them all. Be sure to like the Pet Rescue Life Facebook page. Back to our conversation, retired police officer Robert Bob DeNapoli, retired from, is it Woburn, Massachusetts Police Department?
That's correct, Woburn, yep.
And how far is that from Boston? So for those who don't know Massachusetts, like myself.
Right, 7 miles north of Boston.
So you're really close. And
yeah.
You were a police officer for how many years before you were hurt in a violent incident?
17 years.
Before we get into details of what happened to Robert, he is actively involved with Violently Injured Police Officers Organization. Their website is VIPO911.org. That's VIPO911.org. We'll repeat that a little bit later on and what you do with that organization. Before we go into details of what happened to you that day, a very brief overview of your law enforcement career from start to finish.
Okay, so I did start late. I was 32, 33 when I got on. I was the old man in the academy, which is kind of funny. But when I started as a patrolman, I stayed a patrolman. I liked being a patrolman. I tried being a sergeant a couple of times, taking the test, and it just wasn't there for me. So I said, well, I know where I'm at. I'm going to be happy where I'm at. And so I worked midnights for years. Because it helped me to work midnights, of course, because my kids were in school.
Right. So
I could see everything in the day, any sports, anything they needed to do. So I hung in there for a while. I went to days. Working midnights, there's one entity of people. You know what I mean? You work with, it's mostly, people that are out at midnight are either poor workers that got to work the shift, or they're, drinkers and partying.
Right. We always say there's nothing good. My mother says that nothing good happens after midnight. And it turns out she was right.
She's right, so it's exactly right, though. But I did love the shift. I really did. I didn't mind it at all. So when I went to days, it was because my kids had finished school, and, it was like, all right, Carol, my wife's name's Carol, and I said, look, now we're going to work, and we're going to work toward retirement. We're going to start doing what we planned on doing.
Right. And
so I did. I worked a day shift. I was only on the day shift for 3 years when this happened. So, and it was kind of funny because it was the, what we call the west side of town, which is a very, what can I call it, neighborhoods. It's, no industry. There's no, very little, there's schools and churches and neighborhoods and, a couple of little strip malls. That's it. Everything else is on the east side of town, you know what I mean, near the highways. So it was a quieter part of the town, the city. And, like they said, nothing ever happens on the west side. Oh, yeah? Well, it did, that day. So
you got a call for, was it a robbery?
It was a jewelry store robbery that was in progress when I got the call.
And generally, for people who don't know, when you get the call, a robbery in progress, most of the time, by the time the people call the dispatcher gets it to the paper, and by the time you start responding and you get there, they're long gone. It's very rare that they're on the scene, and that's the way you get used to that. Your adrenaline goes up because what if I get there, what if happens, and what's my training, what I got to do?
Right.
But when you rolled up, they weren't gone.
Right, exactly. They were actually, when I was pulling in, I was getting information that they were running down the back of the stairs. Now, the back, it's a 2-story strip mall, and the jewelry store's on the second floor. So they were running through the back of the building to the rear stairs, and I'm like, wow, I'm going to run right into these guys, unless the getaway car's at the bottom of the stairs. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But as I pulled in, that wasn't the case. You know what I mean? I was actually between them and the getaway car, which was parked across the street in the neighborhood. So, because, I mean, I can give you the story if you want. I can explain to you why
right ahead.
They did. So what had happened was, while I was heading there, they were inside this jewelry store. It's a jewelry store that the doors are locked 24/7. You have to get buzzed in like you would in an apartment building. So what happened was there were 4 people involved, 2 girls, 2 guys. 2 girls, one girl was driving, the other girl got out of the car and went upstairs with the 2 guys that were going to rob the store. She knocks on the door. They wave to her. She lets the 2 guys in, and she goes back to the car, and they go park across the street in a neighborhood. In the meanwhile, that's what these guys start doing is they have a huge bag, and in the bag is duct tape and rope, and this huge, like, I called it an Abercrombie and Finch bag, but it's like one of those big, huge shopping bags with handles. Right. And so they had that. And what they were going to do is they were going to take their time, tie everybody up, and just rob it. So they were going to take their time.
These were not guys that were just doing it off the cuff. This was planned.
Yeah, well, this was planned. These girls had scouted this place out for like 3 or 4 months. They had gone, checked out the place, had gotten familiar with the employees by talking to them, saying, I'm thinking of looking for an engagement ring, whatever their story was. So they had gotten familiarized with the place as they did with the employees. So the employees, as soon as they saw her at the door, let her in, right? Because they were like, fine. And she actually found out that there was actually no camera surveillance at the buildings at all, not even in the jewelry store.
So they could take their time.
They could take their time, and that's exactly what the plan was. So they would give us a cell phone call, come and get us. The girls would drive over, pick the guys up, and they'd be gone. The people would be tied up. And there'd be nobody, it wouldn't be until who knows how long by the time.
So somebody must have saw something and wound up getting on the phone and was able to call and communicate and not be seen.
That's correct. So there was an employee in the back room that they didn't account for. The guy was those mirrors that you can see through on one side, but the other side's a reflector. Well, he was looking and he saw what was going on. So he grabs a cell phone and runs out the back door. Which was a great idea. It was a great thing, but the problem was he slammed the door. And in slamming the door, he alarms the 2 guys. Yeah. So now the guys panic, and they start smashing and grabbing. So, get the employees to start filling bags as fast as they can because now they're panicked because they know someone escaped.
And this guy alerted the police. And so the police are called, and you're responding, and you get there, and you wind up being in a position where if I'm correct me if I'm wrong, your patrol vehicle is in between them and the getaway car.
Correct, because they thought, because in their minds, this is what I heard when I went to the parole hearing. In their minds, they thought this happened so fast that the getaway car was still at the bottom of the stairs. So they were running down the back to the bottom of the stairs, thinking the getaway car was there. But the girls, like I told you, were across the street because they were waiting for the call. So when they get down to the bottom of the stairs, they're standing there in the middle of a parking lot and don't have the girls there, don't have the getaway car. So I pull in. And when I pull in, they're standing behind the car. But they're not crouched down. They're just standing there. And I see 2 heads. They fit the description from the neck up. So when I called off, I see these guys standing beside a car. They're on the other side of the car. So when they look at each other, and I start getting out of the car and I'm going to draw down on them because I know backup's coming because I heard on the radio, the next car's coming and they're sending other cars because the guy in the radio on the cell phone is saying, these guys got guns, whatever he was saying.
Could you see if they were armed at that point?
At that point, no, because all I could see was their heads. They were behind the car,
Gotcha.
So then when I start getting out of the car, I start throwing my gun on the driver's side of my car, they split up. One goes to my left, one goes to the right, and I'm like, oh, man.
That's bad.
Know what I mean?
That's
of course,
bad.
I didn't say, oh, man. I said a lot better words than oh, man. But
I'm sure you said different language. The red flags are going off in my head right now, just you describing it, because you're saying, uh-oh.
Yeah.
I'm out of control, and I'm getting flanked, basically, is what's happening.
Exactly. Yeah. This isn't going well. And I didn't say anything. I didn't even have an opportunity to say, stay right there. I mean, it was like they moved. Then I realized, I'm not in good cover. I mean, I know I'm at my door, crouched down, but I got a guy moving to my left, a guy moving to my right. I got to go to the rear of my cruiser. So I go to the rear of my cruiser, and I have my gun out, and I'm down low, and they're both kind of standing there. They're not moving. I don't see a gun to the guy on the left. Oh, I mean, I did leave something out. When they did split, the guy on my right, he exposes himself at the trunk area, so now I can see from his belly up. And in front of him is that Abercrombie and Finch bag, like I said. He pulls the bag away and draws on me. So he points the gun at me, so I take cover to the back of the cruiser, so I didn't think I was safe where I was. So when I get to the rear of the cruiser, I'm down and I'm crouched down and I'm watching both of them, and they're like, who do I go after first? What do I do? I don't see a gun on the guy on the left, but I do see this kid, and he's moving in front of my cruiser, and he's just sidestepping. And I'm like, well, I see a gun here. I'm going to have to go after this kid,
It's amazing, before we go to break, when we describe these things afterwards, it's not how it happens. It happens so fast in real life. You really can't describe why you're doing what you're doing until afterwards, and you don't even have a chance to really become, at least in my case, frightened while it's happening, because you're reacting to everything. We're talking with retired police officer Robert Bob DeNapoli. This is Law Enforcement Today's show. We're going to take a short break. You don't want to go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Flintstone Media has been the digital messaging bedrock of several brands and businesses, serving as a highly resourceful podcast production house and consultancy firm for over 6 years. Work with a leader in the industry and add a new podcast to your brand's content offerings. From show development and setup through recording and distribution, Jemmy will lend her experience launching dozens of podcasts and producing over 1,000 episodes, making creating your show a simple and easy turnkey process for you. Visit flintstonemedia.com for podcast samples. That's flintstonemedia.com.
One of the most frequent questions we see is, where can I find great podcasts? Do you have any suggestions? Yes, we do. So we decided to start our own podcast network on Law Enforcement Today. That's right. You can find top podcasts about law enforcement on our website and our free app. Go to letradioshow.com, click the Be Heard tab, and there you'll find the LET Podcast Network. We'll be adding more podcasts from first responders and more. Again, to find the Law Enforcement Today Podcast Network, go to letradioshow.com and click on the Be Heard in our menu, or download our free app today at letradioshow.com. Back to our conversation with retired Woburn, Massachusetts police officer Robert Bob DeNapoli. Before we get into the details, Bob, I forgot, and I'm trying to get better at this. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
It's very much appreciated. When we left before the break, you responded to a jewelry store holdup. These guys had this planned out. When you got there, your patrol car was between them and the getaway car, and they're flanking you, and you see that one of them draws a gun. Take us from what happened at that point.
Yeah, at that point, he started moving to the front of my cruiser as the other kid was going to my left. So I retreat. Like I said, I went to the rear of my cruiser to take better cover, and maybe I could see a little better from where because I was like crouched in my doorway, like this isn't a good spot. So I went to the rear of the cruiser, and I was watching him, and he's sidestepping all the way in front of my cruiser, and he starts going like out of cover and out wide open into the parking lot, And I'm saying to myself, what's this guy doing, So
he's trying to get an angle where he can see you better.
Right, exactly. He just can't see me. I got my head down. I'm in good cover. You have a whole cruiser in front of me. I think I'm good, So what I decided I was going to do was I was going to pop up and shoot. I was just like, I got this guy. I got to take him, and then I'll get the guy on my left, because I don't see a gun with this guy. I think this guy is hesitating, or whatever he was doing. I don't know. I didn't believe me when I say I wasn't concentrating on the guy on my left. I can think, afterwards what I may have thought. But at this point, I got the guy with the gun. I'm going to take him out. Then I'll go after the guy that's on my left. So I pop up and I start to fire. I aim and fire, and at the same time, he's doing the same thing. And we we start shooting at each other. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, my gun's gone. It gets blasted out of my hands, and I'm like standing there. What happened to my gun? It exploded. I didn't know what happened. I didn't even know where it went. It happened so fast, it was in my hand, and the next minute it's gone. And I'm standing there out in the open, and I look, and I can see the gun on the ground. And I go, oh, man, so I go down to pick it up, and bang, I get hit in the right leg. So I take cover. And I'm like, oh, I got to take cover behind the car. I tried to get my gun, but I couldn't. But little did I know, when he hit me, when he shot at me, he hit me in my right leg. So my leg kind of dragged. And in dragging, as I was going to the left to get back to my cruiser, I pushed my gun with me. It looked like it could have been a great plan. I just don't think I planned it. You know what I mean?
What plan was there? It's like it's all reacting.
Exactly. You know what I mean? So little do I know, I've already been shot 3 times and don't even know it. So I get on the ground, I take cover, and now I know I'm getting in the way of the kid on my left, but I have no choice. This guy's picking me off. So I get over to, and I'm on the driver's side of the cruiser, and I'm like near the wheel well, and I'm looking around, and I don't see that kid. He's gone. And I'm like, all right. So I look down, and I see my gun on the ground, and I'm like, oh, my God. So I go grab the gun, and I can't use my hand, and I'm looking at my hand, and I see it my left index finger is blown off at the top. It looks like an exploded cigar. And that's all I can explain it to you. It's just tattered and all skin and muscle just hanging off my finger. And I'm looking at it like, how did he do that? How did that happen? My concept wasn't he shot the gun out of my hand. My concept was that my gun exploded. You know what I mean? That's what I thought. I thought, misfire, whatever. I don't even know.
That sounds like our worst nightmares. I had those nightmares for years where you needed a gun for a bad shooting situation and it wouldn't operate, or worse, it would fire and like the bullet would dribble out at the end. Or the worst case scenario was you'd fire and you wound up hitting someone who was an innocent civilian. And all those are just nightmare scenarios. And this is what it sounds like you're going through. But it's real life and you're alive and you're awake.
Exactly. And I can't believe it. When they tell me so there, and I'm saying to them, how did he do it? How did he do that? I mean, I just couldn't. The concept wasn't there that how this happened. Okay, I mean, I had him in my sights. I was like, "You're gone. I got you." And all of a sudden, my gun's gone. You know what I mean? It explodes out of my hand, like I said. So I took the cover. I see the gun, try to pick it up. I can't use my hand. My hand is ringing like when you hit a baseball bat wrong.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And it's just ringing, and I'm like, wow. All of a sudden, I hear rounds, bang, bang. I can hear shooting, and I'm like, wow. All of a sudden, I feel I got hit. So I get hit in the leg, and I'm like, oh, so he's hitting me. And he hits me again. And I'm like, this one goes in my thigh and goes out the rear. Bounces off my femur, which I find out later, of course. Bounces off my femur and goes out to the rear of my butt cheek and goes out. And now I'm like, so I pull this again, and I'm like, oh, man, he's picking me off, So I get down a little lower, and I'm trying to crouched in, and I'm trying to keep myself. And what am I thinking? Where the hell is my backup? They were 2 seconds behind me. Where are they? That's all I kept thinking, because the last thing I remember on the radio was like, Bobby, I'll be there in a second, Bobby. I'm at the Y. The Y's about a quarter mile away from where I'm at.
And everything seems like it's taking an eternity. Time literally slows down. Oh, yeah.
That slow motion effect did happen with me because as I was taking cover, he was following me and shooting. And you could see the glass in my cruiser exploding. And I could see that happening in slow motion as I was taking cover. And I said to myself, wow, that's weird. You know what I mean? Because I'm like, wow, that looks like slow motion. Like I said, where is my backup? And I know Dean's coming. I know the 4-4 car is coming. But I'm like, where is he? I'm getting picked off here. So as I pull my legs in and I get a little lower to the ground, I'm trying to keep my head out. I don't know where the rounds are coming from. I can only assume that they're coming from overhead. I don't know. So I put my head against the car and I get low, and all of a sudden, bang, and it hit me in the eye. I don't know how it happened. I'm assuming a ricochet. I don't know. But it hit me in the corner of my left eye, right on the corner where the outside of my eye. And it fractured everything. It was like getting hit by a baseball bat, I guess, or a golf club. It just hit me in the eye, fractured everything around my eye socket, and it went into my eye and fractured into about 15 pieces around. And so
did you lose consciousness when that happened, or were you still alert?
No, I was still alert. I know my head must have jerked back, from the impact. But then, I put my head against the car, and I could see the blood pouring out of my eye. And, my hand's all jammed up. And my leg is now all shot up, because now I've got a round in my right leg, and I've got 2 rounds in my left. And I'm just like, this guy is kicking me off, and he's killing me.
Oh, yeah. Before you go further, I want to recount the injuries. You're shot in your right leg, shot twice in the left leg, shot in the right hand.
Yep.
And shot,
right arm.
And shot in the right arm, and shot in which eye was it?
The left eye.
And you're still alert.
I'm still alert.
And one of the things you keep saying that is so familiar, and it sounds so hard to describe to people, at least I find it difficult to describe, is the anger that comes up. Like, why are you doing this to me? And I'm not going to let you kill me. I'm going to do what I have to do to survive. You're not going to kill me. Right. Am I understating that anger? I don't know if there's rage is a better term. I don't know what it is.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because my next steps are exactly what you're talking about. So here I am now. Now I know I'm hurt really bad. I don't know where my backup is. And the rounds stopped coming. Now all of a sudden it's quiet. And I'm like, where is he? Where is he? I'm thinking he's going to walk up behind me and double tap me in the back of the head. That's all I'm thinking is, like, I'm done. Because I'm thinking he's right behind me because he knows he's got me. So I'm looking for my knife. And I say to myself, I'm not going to die in this parking lot today. I'm not going to die. If this guy gets close enough to me, I'll put this in his neck.
I'll do what I got to do. Yeah.
I'm trying to get the knife out of my hand, but of course it's the same hand, my left hand, and that's what I get hit. When he took the tip of my finger off, and I can't maneuver it too well. I can only use like my pinky and my thumb, and I'm trying to dig my knife out of my pocket, and it's got a clip on, and I'm trying, and I'm like, if he gets close enough to me, I can take this guy out. I know I can. I can take him.
And your strong hand, your dominant hand is severely injured from the gunshot.
Right. Yeah.
So you would have to be, even if you get the knife out, you got to defend yourself with your non-dominant hand. And most of us, unless you're a trained fighter, if you're right-handed, your left hand is kind of useless, and vice versa.
Right. Well, I happen to be left-handed, so that was maybe a plus for me if I could get my knife out.
We'll be right back. We're talking with retired police officer Robert Bob DeNapoli, retired from the Woburn, Massachusetts Police Department. Before we go to break, he had been shot multiple times, including in the eye, hand, both legs, and arm, and is wondering if the man is going to kill him at this point. This is Law Enforcement Today Show. We'll be right back.
Have you ever wanted to listen to a favorite Law Enforcement Today episode again? Or chat directly with John J. Wiley? Now you can. Download Podopolo for free on either app store and send John J. Wiley a DM right on the app. That's Podopolo, Podopolo.
The place to be online is our Facebook page. Do a search on Facebook for Law Enforcement Today Radio Show. You'll get access to unique news articles, editorials, and so much more. That's Law Enforcement Today Radio Show on Facebook. Returning to our conversation with retired police officer Robert Bob DeNapoli, retired from the Woburn, Massachusetts Police Department. And I got to tell you, Bob, my heart rate is elevated. You got me on the edge of my seat. This is like a Hollywood movie that wouldn't be believable because it would seem like too far-fetched. But this kind of stuff happens. And this is what people in America don't seem to get. And maybe the media doesn't tell them. I don't want to assign fault. But if they really understood how quickly and how dangerous life really is and how that one guy down the street, the one loser down the street can take you out, none of us would sleep at night.
Yeah.
And yet, you weren't planning this. You're having a routine day. You get a robbery in progress, which most of the time, we know that the culprits, if it's for real, are not there when you get there. You encounter the two guys. One of them's armed. He engages in a gunfight. You're severely injured. And all of a sudden, you got dead quiet, and you're wondering where your backup is, and you're wondering if this guy's going to finish you off, and you're trying to get your knife out of your pocket with your injured hand, so if he comes near you, you can stab him.
Right.
And that's what you were left with. The decision-making is, I'm not going to die, so if I need to, I'm going to stab this guy.
Right. I'll take him out. Hopefully he'll get close enough.
And I get that. You know what? But when I try to tell people who've never been in law enforcement, and they look at me, if I say that, they look at me like I have 5 heads, like there's something wrong with you.
No.
And it's not. It's like, I want to survive. That's all it is. I just want to survive. I want to go home to my family.
Right, exactly.
It's not personal. You don't even know who the guy is. And it's like, why are you trying to kill me? I don't understand that.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy, because here I am, and like I said, I couldn't get the knife out, and the silence was what was really bugging me, you know what I mean, because I didn't know where he was, I didn't know what was going on. So all of a sudden, as I'm kind of like waiting, all of a sudden I see hubcaps, because all I can use is my right eye, and I see hubcaps, and it's the next cruiser that showed up. It's a Crown Vic hubcaps, and I just laid back and went, oh man, I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna live, because I can hear my partner Dean getting out of the car, and he's screaming on the radio. So obviously this kid's gone. You know what I mean? But what I found out later was that this kid, how he was picking me off was he was standing on the top of my cruiser on the light bar, just standing there like a cowboy trying to pick me off as I moved and tried to move my legs.
And that was pre-planned. That was not spur of the moment. That was all this was thought out.
Yeah, I think so, yeah. Because, I mean, he even wrote a letter to his girlfriend in Florida saying how much he wanted to kill me afterwards, when he was in jail or wherever he was in the hospital or whatever, he wrote a letter to his girlfriend who called the Woburn Police Department and said, I have a troubling letter here, and it was all about his shooting and what he did to me and what he wanted to do.
This was, so obviously, he got caught, obviously.
You know, he did. Well, what happened was, little did I know, I had shot him twice. So that was kind of something that made me feel good. But he actually ran off the car, left his bag of jewelry, and ran across the street from where he found out where the girls were parked. So when he gets there, the people in the street turn the next cruiser around and say, he's in the backyard, because people were watching this. So people stopped the next cruiser, which was the 4-2 cruiser, and said, he's in the backyard there. So Mark Gibbons turns around, goes back to the house, he jumps out of the woods, and fires at Mark Gibbons and puts 5 rounds around Mark's foot. Mark pulls out his gun, and while sitting in the cruiser, puts 5 rounds out the windshield, sitting down in his cruiser, and hits Matos, well, his name's Matos, hits him 2 more times, okay? So now he drops to a knee. Mark gets out of his car, drops his magazine, puts a new magazine in, and the kid won't stop. He's trying to unjam his gun because his gun jammed. And, Mark gives him orders to stop, and he won't, and Mark put 2 more in him. And that's when he dropped the gun and went down on the ground.
Wow.
Yeah, so now I'm on the ground.
I'm sitting here talking to you about this, and I feel horrible for what you went through, but I'm sitting here thinking, I don't even know this other officer, and I feel horrible that they had to go through that.
Right, exactly.
Because no one goes through that unscathed. Everybody, even if you don't get physically injured, you wind up permanently dinged.
Yeah. Well, see, Jay, it's like this. We had lost a police officer 9 months prior. Jack McGuire had been killed at a Kohl's robbery 9 months prior to me getting shot. So now here I am getting shot. The radio transmission's crazy, and everyone thinks now I'm dead. So every police officer that's responding to this call now thinks I'm dead, because that's the worst case scenario. Because every one of the guys that I talked to said we all thought you were dead. There was no radio transmissions. We knew there was a gunfight, and we just thought you were dead. So we went to him. We went to go get him. You know what I mean? And that's what they did. You know?
And to be honest with you, I'm sitting here and I'm talking to you, and you tell me it's Woburn, Massachusetts. I'd never even heard of the town before. When we hear Boston, you think, okay, that's stuff's supposed to happen there. And I do know what happened to Sean Collier and the other guys in the Watertown area that right. During the whole Boston Marathon bombing shootout and stuff. And these things happen. But even though I worked in law enforcement, my mind doesn't automatically go there, that this stuff isn't supposed to happen in our own communities. And like you said, in an area, it's a decent area, it's a quiet area, and all of a sudden, you don't know if you're going to live to make it home.
I know. It's just crazy, I mean, that's the intent is what? To go home at night. That's what they say.
Well, exactly. That's exactly what I always said. And someone asked me the other day, and if I ask you the same question, I can guarantee you we're going to give the same answer or very similar. They said, do I have any regrets about having to use force in my career? And I said, absolutely not.
No.
There's no, how about this? I'm going to rephrase it. I have no apologies to make. I didn't always want to use force. I didn't want to have to use deadly force. I didn't want to be involved in shooting or sticking anybody or anything else, but they brought that on with their decisions. I did not. The regrets were I couldn't see the future, and the one guy that probably could have shot wound up shooting and killing a police officer about a year later. And I do have regrets, but I don't have apologies to make because it wasn't solely my decision.
Right.
And that's the part that people don't seem to get.
Right. We react. We have to react to the threat. That's it, plain and simple. You know what I mean? That's what our job is. And unfortunately, I had no apologies myself. I mean, I hate to say it the way I'm going to say it, but I wish I took the guy out.
No, I get it. I get it 100%.
He actually shot at another police officer after me.
Yeah.
So, what if he killed Mark and I didn't take this guy out? So
and chances are he probably got life, right?
Right.
So that means...
no, you know what? He didn't.
No?
He only got 30. He got 30 years.
And so he's eligible for parole when?
Well, he gets a month. He gets a week off a month as long as he complies to the rules of the. You know what I mean? As long as he's in good behavior. So let's figure it out. So he'll get out in like 20 years, 22 years, something like that.
No, I get the part. People always say this. Hey, life without possibly parole, or that's not the case with the guy who shot you. But it's like, that's okay. And I'm thinking, well, what about the people that have to work around him? What about the corrections officers that have to work with him every day? When you have a lifer who's got nothing to lose and they're already violent and they're a killer already, what about the social workers that come in there? What about the kid who got locked up on some misdemeanor for the 5th time and it's got to be his cellmate?
Yeah. Right.
These guys don't stop being violent because they're in prison.
Right.
And this guy's writing letters about how he wanted to kill you.
Right. I mean, and that's what he was trying to do. I mean, he wasn't trying to get away, was he? He didn't run.
No.
Once he shot me and he knew I was taking cover, he could have ran. What did he do? He climbed on top of my cruiser and tried to keep killing me.
It's amazing you lived through this, and I know you have devastating injuries. I know that life-changing injuries, and I already know this. We're out of time, so we're going to have you back again in the future to talk more about this. But I do want to close out with VIPO 9/11, what you do, and very quickly how people can get more information. Okay, so you can go on the website, VIPO911.org. We also are on Facebook. It's supporters of violently injured police officers. You can go on Facebook, and we have a Facebook page, which we do more active than the website, but we're trying to be a little more active on the website also. But the Facebook page is actually pretty good because we can all interact, which is pretty good. Right. And, like I said, what we try to do is help police officers. I mean, we're doing everything we can. Like right now, we have 2 bills up at the State House. One is to help the guys that retire that get violently injured, that they can get the 100% disability without having to go through what we call special legislation. In Massachusetts, we have special legislation. You can actually look that up. You can Google special legislation. You can see what it is. But what it is, instead of going on your 72%, you can get the 100%. Plus, you can have other situations. According to your situation, like if you have young kids, how they can get taken care of, or something like that, or a sick kid or something like that. The cities are supposed to help you out with that. So what we have up there right now is that for violent injury. So you don't have to go to individual cities. Everybody will be blanketed throughout Massachusetts and covered for that. No matter where you live, no matter where you work. You could be in Woburn, you could be out west. See, out west in like Orange, Mass, those guys don't make as much money as the guys here in the cities. Yeah. You know what I mean? So 100% of $30,000 isn't really a lot, but it's a lot more than 72%. And the big killer for a lot of them is then they get whacked really badly with health insurance. Bob DeNapoli, I appreciate you so very much coming on the show and tell us your story. We'll definitely have you back. Thanks again. Thanks, Jay. Thank you very much. I'd like to thank our guests so much for coming on the Law Enforcement Today radio show. The Law Enforcement Today radio show is a nationally syndicated radio show broadcast on numerous stations once a week and growing. If you enjoyed the podcast version of the show, please do me a big favor. Tell a friend. I'll be back in just a couple days with a brand new episode of the Law Enforcement Today radio show and podcast. Until then, this is John J. Wiley. See ya.